Right, so this is for those of you that have been with us before. This will be familiar, but in every city, it's a tradition. We look for those through some of our own internal polling locally in the market, so DFW in this case. Sometimes it's our own team. We look for people with outsized, big, amazing contributions to cybersecurity that deserve a little extra. We all deserve recognition. We want to honor everyone for being here. But there are some that were nominated for a little special extra recognition. So with that, when I call your name, we have a little certificate and a little card with a note and a little gift from us with our compliments for all you do for cyber here in North Texas. So I have, first up, David Mendez from ESC Region 10, Information Security Officer. Congratulations. Thank you, David. I have Sihan Ayana from Toyota, Incident Response Lead. All right, coming up, my friend. Chance Barkley from Paid Health, CIO. Chance? We've got Jody Cantello from Tragus, Director of IT. All right. Thank you, Jody. Savannah Shiv from Hagen's Plastics, IT Director. There we go. Thank you and congratulations. Brent Forrest from Crash Champion, CISO. Woohoo! Oh, there he is in the back. Come on, Crash Champion. Anna Ho from St. Jude Medical, IT Director. Anna? Hey, we know that, I mean, it's sometimes, cyber threats don't sleep. Certainly, they don't wait. So sometimes we have to get back to the office. But here in spirit, thank you. Peyton Houston from PepsiCo, Global Cyber Resilience Specialist. Cheers. Thank you. John Hunter from Global Payment Cybersecurity Director. Oh, no. Over that way, Angela. SD Lee from the City of Fort Worth, Cybersecurity Manager. Come on up, SD. Thank you. Stassa Miller from the City of Dallas, IT Manager. She's out, here in spirit. Happily, in fact, you're coming up. Literally, you are the next one. So, Dr. Lovely Moore. Yes, from Toyota, BISO, who will also be joining us as our keynote speaker in a few weeks in Detroit. Thank you. Thank you, my love. Andrea Miskowitz from Bethany Children's Health Center, Director of Information Assurance. Oh, there you are. Congratulations. Alfonso Pinto from CBRE, Director, IT Audit. That's you walking towards me. Yeah. Clean my glasses as they fog up here. Gabriel Podolon from Ariad International, Director, Information Security. Right up front. You've been up front with us all. Thank you for that. Terry Roberts from Image Makers Plus, CIO. All right, Terry. Annie Scaria, from Centene Corporation, Privacy and Security Engagement Officer. Congratulations. Fabrice Yassatalawa from Wells Fargo, IT Audit Manager and Vice President. All right, there we are. Thank you, Fabrice. Not sure if Andre Mendez is still with us, our brilliant keynote speaker from today. I think Andre had to get going a little earlier, but a round of applause again for his amazing keynote this afternoon. And then this brings me to this very esteemed panel of panelists, group of panelists and industry experts that we're lucky enough to welcome. So we want to give them some special recognition as well. Bindi Davé from Optiv Field CISO. All right, we've got Aman from Wells Fargo, Executive Director, Technology, Information Security, Risk Management. Got it all in there. We have Royce Markose from VISTRADA, Chief Information Security Officer. And our moderator for today's panel, everyone's best friend, Renaldo McKenzie from Cyversity, North Texas, President.
Thank you, sir. All right.
All right, so it's been a pleasure being with you all today. I'm going to hand it over to Renaldo and team to take us through securing the future, CISO insights and industry leaders discussing current cyber threats and strategic defense practices. This hour is yours.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Got your mics? Okay. All right. I think we've all been introduced, so we'll just dive directly into the questions. First question is going to be, with the rise in supply chain attacks, what controls and strategies do you see most effective for securing your third-party ecosystems? Bindi, if you want to take it first.
So when we look at supply chain and third-party, right, third-party risk management, TPRM, we need to evolve past the conversation that, hey, this is a procurement thing. I'm just a checkbox in that overall, workflow, so to speak. Do they have a SOC 2 Type 2? Cool, great. Let's onboard them. IT will do that. We need to evolve past that conversation and look into, how are they being integrated into our ecosystem, right? How are we implementing them? What types of data are they handling, not just from a storing, processing perspective? And in order to do that, you just say, I'm going to reduce this concept of trust by default. I mean, how many of you all will find a complete stranger on the street and be like, hey, this is where I live, this is my birthday, here's the keys to my house? That ain't me. So we should take a similar type of approach when we look at our digital and cyber ecosystem. And I won't get into the convergence of physical and cyber here, but and then I want provenance. I want to understand, hey, what's the integrity of this? Do we have S-bombs? How are you securing your ecosystem? Sure, a PDF file or an attestation of one of their security, tests is fine, but I want to see that continuous perspective. So a couple controls that we can put in place, but it is a collective conversation that we need to have transparently with our trusted partners. And if we don't trust them as our partners, then we should revisit if they're vendors in our ecosystem having keys to our house.
Excellent. Thanks, Bindi. Well, taking a segue from what Bindi said, I would say supply chain management, supply chain attacks is becoming a very niche area these days. And it's been underlooked for various reasons. And the way I like to approach this particular niche area is, when you are onboarding a vendor, make sure when the vendor is onboarded, there is continuous monitoring, continuous assessments happening with the vendor. The amount of energy, focus, time, money, resources that's spent in onboarding a vendor, make sure it becomes an annual ritual based on the criticality of the vendor. Now, my definition when I work with vendor management offices is, I want the vendors, the third parties, to be categorized based on the criticality that they bring to the company. And the benchmark that I use and that I always say is, assume you have a vendor A who's your business partner. What if this vendor partner goes out of business tomorrow, files for bankruptcy? How would that affect your business going forward? So that should be the number one question that you should ask yourself, and then start building up on tiering or classifying your vendors. And once that process is done, as I said, make continuous monitoring a ritual. I come from a legal background, and back in the days when after my law degree, I joined the military, and I wanted to get into the corporate world. I didn't want to go to the courts litigating and fighting family laws and divorce cases. I wanted to do something different, and decided to get into the audit field, which I presumed that time was pretty easy. Get a couple of certifications and get into the audit field. And once I was into the audit field risk, I realized, I said, I have my legal qualification. How can I capitalize this degree, this qualification into my present work? That's when I realized when you're dealing with vendors, one of the most important factors is the way you contractually bind them to become your business partners. The contract that you write, it's more or less etched in stone. And once it's gone through the redlining process, when your legal department approves it, it becomes binding on both the partners. So make sure the contractual agreements that you have in place are the stepping stones for your controls. Like if the vendor has any incident, the vendor has to respond in particular time to you, whether it's 24 hours or 36 hours, the industry norm. Make sure that's implemented. Make sure they have adequate cyber insurances in place if there's a ransomware attack. Make sure they give you the right to audit as and when you want. So these are some critical factors that you need to implement, and these, I presume, would be your stepping stones for drafting the right controls to mitigate any risk that may come up.
I would absolutely echo that. Such a big buzzword these days, third-party risk management, supply chain. What does that mean to the organization? What kind of risk are we going to face in the organization if one of those vendors gets breached? In case in point, from my standpoint as in consulting, I deal with a lot of customers, a lot of clients. We had one client that their outside counsel actually got breached. So imagine you're using your counsel for these type of situations, but when your counsel gets breached, that's a whole nother level of wow, that's not good for us, right? So what do you do? So initially what I do normally is treat your core crown jewel third parties as critical infrastructure internally, right? If you have the luxury of deep pockets where you can get the best of the best tools, great. Use those tools. If you're a small, medium-sized company or a mom and pop, you still have these challenges. What do? You can't just not do anything. So what do is if you have a dev team or someone that's somewhat technical, leverage AI to get you to somewhat of a degree where you can monitor those third parties. So like over a weekend, I was just curious about Claude, vibe coding, where you just prompt whatever. So I used Claude and put in a code, hey, I'm a small company. I don't have the budget for third-party risk management. Build me a tool that leverages public data to highlight risks of an organization that could be my vendor or third party. And I prompted some unique things like, is this supplier that I'm working with, do they have job postings on LinkedIn? Because that could be a metric or an indicator that they are a growing company, they have some financial stability. These kind of things can help you get over that hurdle until you get a budget or the company grows. So leverage technology to the fullest to help you. Do not sleep on third-party risk management because it can get you in a lot of trouble. And then make sure you look at those MSAs and those legal terms and conditions, because these companies love to include AI and learning of your data, and that can get you in a lot of problems if you don't know about it. So those are some suggestions.
All right, really good. Sorry, I dropped my phone when you mentioned third-party risks, and you said that the legal counsel got breached, right? So that kind of brings into that fourth party, and they're not necessarily that third party, right? So you have another party that's involved there. So are we I guess the question is, how much transparency are we requiring for them, that they're outsourcing maybe some of their functions, is not in-house. So totally off script. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I think it's on point. It was a perfect time to drop the mic or the phone, because I think all of us up here, Royce, were like, oh, yeah, that one hurts. Yeah, we've been there. I think that transparency level is in relationship to the impact, right, to the business. What's the relationship to the blast radius? So with your outside counsel, depending on what situation they were addressing, that's a pretty big blast radius for them to get compromised. So full transparency, again, dependent on what that situation is. And this is where, your more typical TPRM, I feel like that's going to be the bad word of the day, as opposed to typically AI. But that's where your SOC 2, that type of visibility comes in. What's their ability to detect, right? And detect, I would argue, what's their ability to respond to an event, and then, to your point, Aman, disclose within a time period is also important. By the time that detection comes up, we can argue that it's already too late. Right. It's in, right? That signal. So what is their ability to find those signals sooner and then respond and recover and notify us? But that transparency equates to that blast radius for me.
All right, awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Bindi. I take business relationships like any other relationship, whether it's between friends or husband and wife or the significant other, based on mutual trust, transparency, and things like that. So if you consider business relationship akin to a marriage, a relationship where you're transparent and open and flexible, that's when there are more chances to succeed. And since I come from a legal background, I try to focus things from a legal perspective. And that's why I keep emphasizing that if you put things in writing with your vendor, whether it's kind of a prenup or postnup, something in writing that enforces what your expectations are. Like, for example, if there's been a data breach, company A should not get to know through the media or through some third party. The onus should be on your business partner to come to you ASAP, even before the stipulated timeline of 24 hours or 36 hours, and let you know, hey, this is what has happened, we are working towards it. And it can happen to anyone. Same applies when you're vetting the vendor. How do they deal with incident responses? Do they have incident response team? How effective are they? Do they have a information security policy? A very basic thing that's updated, that's in line with the industry standards. So those are some critical areas which I would personally focus on.
Additionally, like when you do get into breach situation with a third party or a supplier, and they notify you, what steps are you going to take internally, right? Those are key things that you got to think about as security professionals, as CISOs. So kind of double tapping on that previous conversation. So their board or leadership team reached out and they're like, Royce, what do we do now that we had this notification? Immediately, you got that letter, they are investigating, but there's things internally that you need to start prepping for, right? So when you're talking about, I'm just using the outside counsel reference as an example, when you have an outside counsel that got breached, you know they're going to have your PII, sensitive information, documents that may be compromised. You may not know fully yet the degree of what that compromise is, but those are the questions you need to ask. You need to have a clear timeline of when were you aware of the situation, when did you notify us, what type of data was involved, and then once you get that information, then you process that internally, bring in your HR team, because there's going to be potentially regulatory requirements and obligations that you're going to have to do internally. So prepping those comms to your general staff of, hey, this happened, we are aware of it. I think that always works. When you don't have to give every single detail, but you are transparent to your organization. I think that builds trust, because there's nothing being hidden. You are telling them this is happening, we are processing it, we don't have all the information, but we are working on it, and we'll keep you posted. And I think that goes a long way, because a lot of times there are companies that try to hide this kind of stuff, and then you have like someone that's a cyber influencer or someone that is wanting to rile up people, post about this publicly, and that does catastrophic damage to your brand and reputation. You always want to take the bull by the horn. This crappy thing happened, but this is how we're going to deal with it, and this is how it's going to work and flow. So,
all right, awesome. You made me think about something else, but I'm not going to ask that. Might throw us off. Do it?
Do it.
Is that a dare?
Double dare.
So let's switch gears a little bit. I know we've been talking about AI and cybersecurity and deepfakes and all that stuff for a while. So we're gonna touch on it a little bit and then transition. But as far as AI, so AI is transforming both defense and the attack sector. So each of you as leaders, where are you seeing attackers using AI to scale attacks? And also, I guess a follow-up is like, what is your approach to detecting AI-generated threats, like deepfakes, autonomous malware, et cetera? So just interested to get your take on that, kind of what you're seeing, and kind of share with everybody what strategies you've kind of put in place to kind of mitigate that. So, Royce, you want to take it first?
Yeah, it's a great question. Recently in the news, we heard about Anthropic, right? That huge Claude Code breach where a Chinese threat actor leveraged AI to actually, expand their attack and really take advantage of AI and move quick. That was a huge problem. That's the first kind of, in the industry, something that was documented where AI was used to scale attack and really bypass controls and breach a company. So these are just things that are happening now that we knew there's potential, but was theory, but actually happened. And these state actors, they have unlimited amounts of money, and they know about weaknesses in your vendor products and your software. And if you thought you were doing a good job as a security team and playing whack-a-mole with one threat and patching something, and there's a new threat, imagine now you got 10 moles or 100 moles coming at you at the same time. What do? These teams, your teams are already stretched thin. So the same way attackers are using tools to attack, you have to use these tools, you have to brace these tools to defend. And there's a lot of snake oil in the industry about AI this, AI, if I ask everybody a question right now as a poll is like, is there AI fatigue? I'm sure a lot of you will raise your hand and like, you hate hearing the buzzword AI in every single conversation. But it's hard to decipher that. You're going to have to dig in to each vendor and see how they do it. But everyone obviously is going to try to capitalize on buzzwords. But at the end of the day, what I do say as a practitioner, being in the weeds as an engineer, these things, security it's changed by technology, but the threats are still the same threats. You're going to have a layered approach. You're going to have to train your teams. You're going to have to, things are going to go bad. You're not going to always be 100% secure because a bad actor is going to find a way to get into your networks and your systems. So what we've started doing internally for our clients is doing, including AI in our tabletop exercises, right? So you have AI as part of like a tool or a feature, but those same features, maybe a bad actor got into your vendor and now they have full access to your environment and they can kind of expand. What do you do in those type of situations? How would you get a hold of your SaaS product or SaaS technology and make sure that they get that bad actor out quickly and efficiently without causing you major impact? So start including those AI scenarios in your tabletop.
Yeah, interesting. I was wondering how could a conference be successful without, talking about AI. So AI not only makes an attacker smarter, but what it's doing is it's making the average attacker dangerous. So anyone who wants to get into the world of hacking these days, he doesn't have to be a geek or technically qualified or have that bent of mind to really get into the system. There are AI tools available. I was surprised to learn that there is something called ransomware as a service also available. You go to the dark web, you have companies there which take money from you, you negotiate a price, they attack a company on your behalf, and you give them bitcoins, cryptocurrency, and they follow a typical process that a customer care company would follow, and after the attack is done, the ransomware money is exchanged, they give you a survey to complete. How did you like their service? And these are not high-level talks or anything that I'm saying out of the blue. It's actually, that's how they operate, and all thanks to AI and the tools that are available in the industry now. So AI it's a dangerous tool. It all depends who is holding that tool in his or her hands. So keep that in mind and be focused when you're playing around with AI, and subsequently, as AI progresses, the controls that we would have in place, I'm sure in the days to come, we would be able to demarcate between which AI tool is good or which AI tool, if it goes into bad hands, would become dangerous. Back in the days, well, I wasn't born when the calculator was invented, but I keep saying this, there are people who still don't use a calculator, they do their mental math. So it's up to you to see, you really want to use AI, do you see a potential of using AI in your lives, in your professional life or personal lives? And I'm sure in the days to come, it's going to become a very important aspect of our lives. But for now, ask yourself this question, are you ready for it? Because you need to be first ready, mentally prepared to use this tool, because it's an addiction. All those of us who use ChatGPT or Gemini or any other tool, we are not going back to Google. We are being so dependent on this. So I think in the days to come, there'll be a lot more to share, exchange, and grow with.
1000% what both of you have said. So I won't re-engage on that part. But to your point, like, are you ready for it? There is that aspect. But what happens? How many of y'all woke up in 2026 and now AI was embedded in your phones, right? You're getting quick summaries in our Gmail. I mean, it's there. And yeah, to your question, right? There's adversaries are using it. We're using it. How are we using it in our defense? But we all have, it's the playing field is effectively the same. Just like as CISOs and security leaders, we all have the same problems that we're trying to face, and networking and collaborating together in conferences like this, right, to find out different innovative ways of how others are solving them. Similarly, adversaries are leveraging or have the ability to leverage the same technology. So on their side, deep fakes get, social engineering gets faster, more pointed. In emails, or what was it, phishing, we used to be able to look for poor grammar or different signals to say, hey, this might be a phishing email and not something, that's gotten a lot smarter. The time it takes to do reconnaissance has gotten faster. So you guys covered a lot of that and a lot of examples, so I won't dive into that, but what are we doing from a defensive mechanism? I mean, some of the programs that I've built, I mentioned it earlier, when you're in a detection or an alert phase, it might be too late. But now we have the technology ability to say, okay, what is the behavior-based fingerprint? We can find anomalies that much faster, right, leveraging these technologies. When we talk about digital trust, that's the combination. Royce, we were talking about this earlier, where it's security meets compliance and privacy and legal and your contractual obligations. Say, okay, from all of those, do we have defensible operations in place? Do you have a UCF or a controls framework where you can not easily, but automatically find drift from those controls? And are those controls fit for purpose for that organization? Because every time you add a control, it's going to add friction in that pipeline. When we talk about building a cybersecurity program, I like to go about it from a threat-led approach. Not just what are the cyber threats that are out there, right? But what's the existential threat to the business? And you can start layering on conversations about how you speak the language of the business. You can build agents that, again, similarly empower you to detect faster, ideally before a compromise happens, from behavior-based fingerprints, to respond faster. So ensure that whatever metrics you're tracking as risk indicators to your organization speak the language of the business and are aligning to the performance indicators that the business is tracking. But that technology should be, can be used for bad, but it can be used for good and efficient as well. I think the key differentiator in there is how are we empowering our human capital to understand it, and embedding it as part of their fabric and their day-to-day lives, and building a culture of defenders as opposed to something that they do 9 to 5 or in cybersecurity 9 to 9, whatever their working hours are.
I just wanted to share some real life examples on this very topic. So just a few years ago, phishing was a big threat, getting emails, and as Bindi mentioned, we were able to catch more or less just because based on the spelling mistakes or some different fonts we were able to catch, and that's what most of us who are sitting here were trained on, those company-wide training programs, which we have to do every year. But gone are those days when phishing is more of a risk. Now you have smishing, where SMSs are sent out to you, and that's also being bypassed. Now you have impersonation, deep fakes going on, or wishing going on, where they just catch hold of a few words that you say, and they build up the same tone, and they make sentences or leave voice messages with your accent and the way you speak. So I always used to have my phone on that answering machine mode, where if no one's able to get through me, you'll get to hear my voice. Hey, this is Aman Tara, and please leave your message. And then I realized, I said, no, this is tricky. If someone happens to catch hold of that recording, they might build up something, and it might get into wrong hands. So I felt I was safe, not realizing I've been doing a radio show from the past 14 years, talking 2 hours every week. And then I left my radio show, not because of this reason, but some other reason. So technology is moving. The way you speak, your recordings, your pictures get manipulated. And the real life examples that I wanted to share with you was, we all live in a hybrid IT world where face-to-face interviews are no more happening. It's more online based. So you have tools where you are sitting in front of the monitor and giving your interview, and on the side, you can get a prompt. You can have your monitor answering the questions which the interviewer is asking. That's phase 1 of mishandling AI tools. Phase 2 is having your picture embedded into a deep fake personality, whether it's a boy or girl. So it's not you who's sitting in front of the monitor and interviewing. It's a deep fake image with your voice, with your picture, and answering all the questions, and you're behind the screen just laughing and passing your time having a bottle of beer or a black coffee or something. So these are the technological advancements which are getting into wrong hands, which are really a cause of concern. I thought I'll just share these examples with you.
That's good. All right, so we're going to change gears a little bit, talk about the human side of cybersecurity. We've been talking about artificial intelligence quite a bit, so we're going to touch on the human side, talking about burnout, leadership. I think we're all practitioners in this room, right? So we've dealt with this burnout and leadership stuff from a various standpoints. So the question is, I'm kind of curious from each of you. So I guess the first question is there a cybersecurity talent shortage? So it says the cybersecurity talent shortage is ongoing. So how are you really attracting, retaining, and upskilling talent while also addressing burnout and team fatigue? So basically, how are you fostering a strong security culture?
I'll take it.
Go ahead and take it, Royce.
I mean, statistically, they say there is a shortage, but what I'm seeing is companies are being super picky about job postings where if they're looking for a SOC analyst, they're throwing out crazy things. You need 5 years or 10 years of experience, and I'm like, you're starting your first journey as a SOC analyst. You don't need 10 years. What you need is a good manager that's going to bring you under your wings and a good team that can support you, and you're going to learn on the job. And I think that's the biggest issue in our industry is people are not being realistic in job postings. So that's A. And I think the other question was burnout. Absolutely, there's burnout. I mean, I've been locked into situations where my family and I were looking to spend some time on a vacation, and all these bad actors know my schedule, and they tend to hack companies that now I need to jump on a call, and I'll be busy all weekend, and our vacation plans have just gone down the toilet, right? So my wife's not happy, my kids are upset, but I'm like, it's my job, right? So you get stressed, and you got to deal with those situations. And then on top of that, your team members are dealing with stuff that you may not see as a leader on a regular basis. So I do like to have regular check-ins. I'm not a micromanager, but I do check in with my team. How are you doing? Are there any roadblocks? Are you stressed about anything? Is there anything I can do to take those roadblocks away? And I think if you have those regular conversations and checkpoints with your team members, I think they're happier. And then there's times where there's heated conversations, and debate is always healthy, but sometimes I tell my team members, hey, take a walk, come back, and then we'll regroup and have fresh and sometimes it's me. I need a walk around the neighborhood, come back, fresh brain, and hear my team out, right? So it's a two-way street. We're human. We're not AI. We do have emotions. We do have families. We do have situations in our lives, and it gets stressful, but you got to take the time personally to do things outside of work. I've had managers in previous roles that, for no reason, would send a Slack message on a Saturday, and I'm like, I'm not gonna, if you train bad, negative behavior, you will continue to get that. And I just had a conversation with my boss. I'm like, hey, this was not important. It could have waited to Monday, and we ironed that out. So have candid, transparent conversations with your management. You'll be a lot less stressed.
Very well said. Thank you. Yeah, I think there is a shortage of cybersecurity professionals, but this shortage is for those people who are not qualified or who are not trained enough. If you look at this country, after the two most highly paid jobs of attorneys and doctors, it's the cybersecurity space that can really give you value for money. And it's a very vast area. It's just not restricted till, routers and switches. You can get into the cybersecurity audit side, cybersecurity risk side, cybersecurity mitigation, so on and so forth. Hacking, there's so much. It all depends what kind of passion you have, what you bring to the table. A few months ago, I was speaking at the University of North Texas in Denton, and seeing the present geopolitical situation, the graduate students were a little worried, and they were asking what scope do they have after finishing their masters in cybersecurity and IT, information security, with no experience. And most of them were, immigrants who had come from different countries. So I answered, there's always a debate between experience and certifications. We all like to get certifications. I probably have maybe 10 different certifications. That's a good thing. But certifications only have value if you have experience, if you can walk the talk. So for someone who's a fresher, I said the best goal would be to get into an organization where you can work in the customer care, be a technical support guy. That's when you would really get hands-on experience. You would be able to guide people, you would be able to learn, and that can build up your resume as some experience, real-life experience. Plus, when you're troubleshooting IT problems, that's when you would be able to realize what your passion is. Are you into hardware, software, auditing, hacking? So, again, as I said, there is a shortage, but there's no dearth of people out there waiting to absorb you in their companies. So, keep your hopes high, and as time flies by, you never know, this particular field, cybersecurity, might surpass attorneys and doctors too. Let's see.
I really like that perspective, Aman. Like, typically when I go to bring folks into my teams, I'll go to help desk, IT, customer support, folks that have been in line in the first and second lines of defense, because that's where we're trying to put that risk accountability back into. And they have a little bit more experience, not just in the business, but the defensive part of it. I like your perspective on hope too. So I think they covered it well on whether there's a shortage or not in different avenues. I liked Royce's response to checking in with the teams. Hey, I hope you're doing well, right? Checking in one-on-ones. But I'm a data girl, and hope isn't my strategy, like we've talked about earlier. So alongside those conversations, I like to implement a concept of Scrum within my teams. I understand it's development-led, but I want to, in each individual and the team's velocity, get an understanding of their baseline of what they can do in a time-boxed period. right? Say within a 2-week sprint, if the team of 5 people can do 30 points in velocity, that gives me, in addition to the one-on-ones and more human side of it, are we still maintaining a velocity? Did something dip? Because a lot of times folks may not want to talk, right? They may not want to share something that's going on in their personal side, but a dip in the work is a signal. And like we've been talking about continuous monitoring, right? Signals, alerting, detections. This is just another mechanism for doing that for our human capital side. So ensuring that we have a pulse on our teams. It's a safe place to have those types of dialogues. And at GoDaddy, I used to hold these things called Lodos, which is our lights on, doors open once a month. My entire organization got together. It was for 1 hour a month. My leadership team and volunteers would create a game or something. We weren't allowed to work. It was just an online networking opportunity. Because even though they're on different teams, that camaraderie and sense of purpose of what they're doing it for matters, right? We want to put that sense of purpose back into each of the individuals, no matter what their level or role is. Speaking back to Scrum and leveraging velocity metrics, their task that they worked on in that sprint rolls up to a project, program, all the way through how they're impacting what the CEO is talking about at an all hands and what we're reporting to the board. Again, they feel a part of the bigger vision and picture, and there's a sense of purpose. So preventative, proactive, and feeling like what they're doing matters, and it's a big deal. All the way through the detective, right? We talk about that. Do we have our baseline velocity in place? Do we have signals of when things might be off? And then from a responsive perspective on the human capital, shoot, go take a break. I know I need a vacation sometimes too. It's okay. And you know, if you're working on something critical and you can't plan for it, lean on your team members because you've built that relationship and that camaraderie.
All right, it's very good. All right, so we have a few minutes. We want to get you all involved. Oh, look at her. We have a mic. Can we get her a mic, please?
A lot of people who know who I am, I ask questions when I can. We can talk about employee burnout and third-party risk and all of that good stuff forever. So I am not completely sold on AI. Has nothing to do with the fact that I watched Terminator and iRobot. So I just want to make sure we get that straight, okay? Yes, it makes our lives easier. We understand that. We talk about third-party risk. AI is a third-party risk. We are implementing AI in all of our operations, all of our processes. AI has access to our sensitive data. And we don't look at governing that. That's a whole nother story. How do we stop AI from learning our environment and using our environment against us? That's the question.
That's a good question.
That's a good question, yeah. I think the one-word answer for that is guardrails. You need to have guardrails around the data that's being used. That's one. Second, who owns the process when you're using AI? You know, the accountability part. And the third and the most important part is the validation part. So if you recall in one of the lectures, one of the vendors, the gentleman mentioned that the data that's being used is all procured from universities. And for test environment, that's a good segue to build up your prompts. Use the mask, non-re-engineered data that comes from academic institutions to work on your AI prompts. But in real life, when you're working in an environment in your own companies, there have to be guardrails set around the data that you're using. And there has to be a process to validate what the prompt has done. There has to be a process to make sure there is human in the loop involvement. Like the company that I work for, one of the world's third largest bank. We have clear-cut policies in handling AI. We have an AI framework that we validate, that we follow. We have a hierarchy. There's a team that's going to build the AI prompt. There's a team that's going to do the human-in-the-loop analysis. There's a team that would validate. Then there's a team that would approve. And then there's a team that would put it into production. So it's a cycle that needs to be followed very, very religiously. It's a very, very dangerous tool. And there have been media reports, to your point, where there's a company called Anthropic. They did a very controlled environment test where the person who was doing the test, he got blackmailed by the AI prompt. So he ran a prompt saying that there's a fictitious character working in the company and I'm firing you. So the AI prompt, although they're like human beings, except for the feelings. But in this case, there was a flavor of feeling. The AI prompt shot back to the engineer from Anthropic saying that, sorry, you can't fire me. If you fire me, I have access to all your social media and your personal chats, records. You're having an affair in the office with the girl. So take me back, promote me. So the engineer had to, and it's a controlled environment test. The engineer had to promote that AI prompt, aka employee, not fire. So it's a very dangerous tool, but if you have those guardrails, as I said, life is going to be easy.
How do we know that those AI validations are not hallucinations?
So that's a good point. So you need to, again, it's iterations. When you're doing the validation, it's just not one validation. You keep doing multiple validations, and depending on the company that you represent or the process that you're doing, there has to be a percentage of error that has to be predetermined. Like, for example, if I'm working on a particular project, based on the scenario and the analysis and the healthy debates that we have had, we would come to a number. Okay, if the validation is 87% correct, we are good to go. So it all depends on case-to-case basis.
And I would tag on to your point that you made earlier about, how do we prevent AI from learning our environment and using it against us? To me, it's the same situation about security, right? At the end of the day, I think AI is going to learn about your environment and it is going to attack you. That's the bottom line. As it starts getting like part of all your technologies, it's going to be embedded everywhere. So you have to start taking those things in accommodation, like crown jewels, doing your tabletop exercises. If this particular tool was used against us from a threat model perspective, what is the blast radius? How could we prevent this from getting worse? Is there a way to limit the data sets that we are using on these tools? So at the end of the day, every organization is going to be breached in some form or fashion. It's the prep to, hey, if this happens, are we ready to deal with it?
Yeah. What's our ability to respond, right? What are your current metrics for your mean time to detect or your ability to respond? I think on the other side of it, agree with having a human in the loop and the validation. Today, it's still not deterministic. So those folks that are using it as a deterministic outcome to make decisions, right, wholly and totally, we're not quite to that point. It is still math and vectors on the back end that are taking weights from our model spec. I think we're getting the flag that it's time to roll out in 8 minutes.
No, he's saying only 8 bottles of beer left.
Oh, no, okay, you better run now. But, shoot, where was I going with that now? AI would have been able to pick that up, right? II is not in it. But no, yeah, you guys are spot on. But there's a learning capability, and we need to empower our people. One of the biggest gaps that I've seen is, businesses in a previous life, the CEO got in front of everybody at an all hands and said, everyone needs to start using AI right now. If you're not using it, your job might be in jeopardy. Well, guess who they didn't talk to? The CISO, the deputy, security had no idea. They weren't using enterprise, right? Didn't have an understanding of where their data was, where their applications were that processed that data, even where those CIs were from a classification perspective. So We talk about the basics constantly in cybersecurity, having an understanding of your inventories, the prioritization, what protective mechanisms you have across that. If those protections fail, your ability to detect, on and on we go down the CSF. That shouldn't change, right? But AI shouldn't be looked at as just a technology. It is, to your point, part of our critical infrastructure. So we are as good as our ability to protect those crown jewels and that critical infrastructure. But I don't think we can say that we're going to block it wholly because it's embedded in so much of our lives, whether we accept it or not.
Awesome. Do you have a question?
They're all into it.
Start from the beginning.
Okay, so the people empowerment part of this doesn't seem realistic because people will always use the lowest hanging fruit as their answer to everything. So it's like, if that's work for me to do, no, I'll just decline it or just deny it. And so then you don't have true empowerment.
Yeah, but AI doesn't shift that, right? Like, I've handled incidents where, they attacked our customer service reps and offered them $1,000 or $2,000 more bucks to take data from our environment because we paid them minimum wage in that ecosystem. And so that comes back to our behavior-based, ability to detect and respond and some of that. But you're right, nothing's going to be 100%, just like the science of cybersecurity isn't 100%. But coming back to how do we retain talent, all the way back to how do we build a culture of defenders, there is an empowerment piece to it, and educating those folks in how to use AI, how to leverage it responsibly, what to look out for. That goes, to Aman's point before, beyond just your security awareness training that you take annually. But to your point, that problem isn't new. AI is not doing anything different. It is a perpetual one, but things get complex. Every human that you have is a different snowflake, and each snowflake is a shaving, and shavings make piles.
I would also add the human element of this as well. Like, if you have nation states that are attacking your organizations, they're going to leverage the lowest hanging fruit, and that sometimes could be the humans, right? So I've seen campaigns where they've reached out to folks on LinkedIn. Hey, I'll give you this $200 gift card. Can you tell me about your technology stack? All they're doing is internally trying to map what tools, technologies you guys have inside the network, and then they're going to start their campaigns to attack those pieces. Or they'll try to leverage and take over some people in your organization for more information. So those are other aspects to consider.
All right. I wanted to add on to that. So I know we're talking about AI and attacks and stuff like that, but the two things that come to my mind is responding to those attacks, because we know they're coming. How are we going to respond to them? And then more importantly, once those attacks are launched, how are we going to recover? Like, how long is it going to take us to recover? Because the business has to continue, right? So just kind of think about that as we kind of prepare for these attacks, because it's not if, right? It's when it happens. How are we going to respond and recover, basically? So just wanted to add that. All right. Any more questions?
Button hook.
Jackson Koo with AT&T. I'm sold on AI because I saw and watched Terminator, Terminator 2, Terminator 3, Terminator 4, and all the way to 6. So my question to the panel is, what is your PDOOM score? Estimation the probability that artificial intelligence is going to cause a catastrophic event and kill us all.
Have you watched Avatar? That's the answer. Sooner or later, we all are going to be slaves for AI. Let not that happen during my lifespan, but the way things are moving, we all would be slaves. That's what I think, and I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
So Have you ever thought about like the domestication of dogs? Right? I mean, they started out as wolves, as these independent, fierce creatures, right? That had to go and hunt and gather and do a bunch of things for themselves. And then things started to get a little easier. Food started to be provided to them. They started to get cuddles. And you look at the evolution of a domesticated dog now, right? And where they sit in that pack and hierarchy. I don't know about destruction and that macro, iRobot, or I don't know, there was a movie where people actually just laid in tubes and their bodies were out there in the world. I think it was a Bruce Willis film. Bruce Willis is in all of these, I feel like. But there is some reality. I think Aman said it earlier. People did math in their heads, and we went to calculators, right? A lot of times folks aren't able to write an email without the leveraging some sort of AI assistance. So it's there's something to that, and I don't know, at least in my lifetime, I don't want to be a domestic dog.
I'll close it with, I think it was Google that said they had two AIs chatting, and then all of a sudden it switched and started talking in a weird language, and they couldn't understand what it was saying. So my advice is have your hand on that cord, because you may have to pull it.
Awesome.
Sorry, there's also a joke going on in the social media. 30 years from now, there's a dad talking to his son. There's some argument going on here, and he tells him, "Can't you use your mind?" And he looks at his phone on ChatGPT. He says, "Dad, what do you mean by can't you use your mind? What is a mind?" So that's the level of dependability it's going to be on ChatGPT and AI tools.
On that note.
Huh?
I said on that note.
On that note, yeah, I think we'll wrap it up on that one. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you for our esteemed panelists. Give them a hand. And Andrew, I think you said you had something. I don't see you in the room, though, but I was going to turn it back over to you. Okay, I see you there. All right.